15. Let's check it out. So number 15, which statement is false? It's important to read that. Short-run cost assumes a fixed capital size, while long-run cost includes all possible capital levels in determining cost. That's true, so it's not false. Short-run total cost can never be less than long-run total cost at any given output level. And that's true, actually. Long-run cost is an unconstrained optimization. Short-run cost is a constrained optimization. So the constrained optimization, the best it can ever be, is equal to the unconstrained optimization. But generally, it's a worse. And when we're talking cost, that means higher than the short-run cost curve is higher, generally speaking, except for 1 point. So B is out. Short-run average total cost and long-run average total cost are never equal except at the minimum point on the long-run average total cost curve. This one turns out to be true. Let's just eliminate D. Long-run marginal cost never intersects with long-run average cost as long as increasing returns to scale are present. And that's true too. If average costs are falling, increasing returns to scale, then that means marginal costs are lower than average total costs. All right, so D is out. So this is a common misconception. This question gets at a common misconception. If we think of the long run, there's a whole bunch of short run total cost curves corresponding to any given capital stock. Suppose it looks like that. The long run, I'll make a different color, the long run cost curve is the lower envelope, which if I were a better artist, you would see clearly is the tangency between each short run cost curve. Now that only is the minimum of the short run total cost curve that is tangent at the very bottom of the long run average cost curve. Otherwise, the tangency is at a point other than at the minimum short run total cost curve. And actually, the point where they're equal turns out to be, if we have a long run marginal cost there, the point of tangency is where the long run and the short run marginal costs are equal. I'm not much of an artist, as you know, so oops, I just missed that one. Let me. Here we are. I drew these, so they had to be really steep. But anyway, I'm not the world's greatest artist, as you know. All right, so 17 was one that caused some problems. In a competitive industry, the industry's short-run supply curve is determined by the average total cost curve. No, remember, we derived you in your reading examined the derivation of the short-run supply curve as the horizontal sum of each firm's marginal cost curve. A single firm's supply curve is the marginal cost curve above average variable cost, and then the market supply is simply the horizontal sum, summing across quantity of each short-run curve. So see, it's definitional. I don't know that I can explain it any better than that. Somebody could, but I probably can't. If free entry and exit were not possible, in the long run firms would lose money, in the long run firms would make money, in the long run firms would break even. Any of those could be true. Remember that what free entry does and free exit do. Free entry ensures that if firms were ever making profit, in the short run there would be entry that would drive those profits away down to zero. So without entry, positive profits could persist. In the case where firms are losing money, those losses would, over time, result in firms exiting. firms can't exit, then they could lose money, and period after period, and then they could be breaking even too. So D is actually, it's impossible to tell. So that's the answer to that one. Let's see if there's a short one on the next page. We're in a range of questions where the answer key had gotten messed up. In the long run, the typical firm in the market will produce a quantity equal to, and we're making an assumption that the cost structure of the firm doesn't change with entry and exit. Right now, firms are making a profit. They're producing at Q1 in the short run where price and marginal cost are equal. But in the long run, we know that's going to attract entry. Profits are equal to this rectangle, the area of that rectangle. It's supposed to be a straight line across. And those profits are going to attract entry in the long run. That means supply curve is going to shift to the right with entry. When's it going to stop? Only once enough entry that has occurred that profits are driven back down to zero, and that's going to be at Q3. Again, this is this answer C. This is assuming a constant cost industry. 20 had some issues. I don't think 21 and 22 did outside the messed up answer key. Ceteris paribus in the long run, a tax placed on, oh yeah, this is a big one. In the short run, in our supply and demand review at the beginning of the semester, we studied the incidence of a tax. And we saw that relative to a competitive market outcome, without a tax, let's change color. Without a tax, we saw that buyers paid a little bit more, sellers received a little bit less. They split the tax. How they split it depended on the nature, the elasticity of demand and the elasticity of supply. Well, it turns out our long-run analysis of the competitive firm leads us to qualify that. If firms and industries started in long-run equilibrium and then a tax were applied, let's quickly run through that case. So we'll start with a long-run equilibrium. That means there's zero profits being earned. This is the market to the left. And I like to show the firm level outcome as small q. Price is the same for both. So we're initially at a long run equilibrium, zero profits, price equal to average total cost. Outputs there. All right, short run, what's going to happen? Let's use blue for short run. With a tax, there's a wedge between what buyers pay and what sellers receive. Price buyers pay goes up. Price sellers receive goes down. This is P1, this is P1 minus T. All right, well, that's what sellers receive, so their output's going to go down to Q1. And the firms lose a bit of money now. ATC1, we'll call that. And notice that that's our short run analysis. Here's the incidence, and that's all we did with our first run at supply and demand analysis. But now we're going to recognize that in the long run, some of those firms are going to exit. This is the firm level marginal cost. This is the firm level average total cost. With exit, we're going to assume, again, a constant cost industry, so these cost curves don't change. But what happens is, with exit, the supply curve shifts to the left. And how much exit has to occur? Well, enough exit has to occur that the remaining firms are breaking even. And what that means, that point's going to happen. I didn't draw this very well, but that point's going to happen when the full tax has been passed on to the consumer. So in the long run, the consumer pays all of the tax because firms will exit until price goes up that they can break even.